Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about a very requested topic that has been mentioned in some of the comments and also in private messages. And it is how to become a doctor in Switzerland. I will talk in general because I think most of you don't have a specific specialty, maybe not psychiatry, so I'll maybe mention a few more extra details in progress of this video about psychiatry in particular. But also this video can be taken as in general, how to become a doctor in Switzerland. So let's start. It's going to be a little bit longer video, so and I'm going to be divided into 5 main sections. So the first one's going to be who is given priority and how difficult is it becoming a doctor here. Second would be how to get your diploma recognized here. Third would be the importance of language and what kind of requirements do you need in order to become a doctor here. Then it's going to be how practically to apply. So what do you need to do in order to apply for specific programs? And I will give you a tip here with a very practical way to actually apply. And the last one is another, it's for people who are interested in more competitive specialties, some tips of how to put your foot in the system here in order to be able to get it later. So this I'm going to discuss at the end, and I hope this video is going to be helpful for you. So first point, priority. So it's very obvious. It's clear. I think it's very clear also in other countries is also the same system. Priority always is given to the citizens. So the Swiss people who studied here in Switzerland and the Swiss people who studied in an EU or EFTA countries will have priority into getting a specialty spot. That's obvious. The next on the priority list would be EU citizens, especially EU or EFTA citizens, especially those who studied in a country that speaks one of the main 3 languages here in Switzerland. And I would also add more the German-speaking countries, for example, Germany or Austria. So if you're coming from those countries, you'll find it much easier to get a spot here. And you can also see it around. So the majority of the doctors here are actually coming from Germany or Austria or German-speaking countries, basically. And then goes the list down into people who are not EU citizens and not EFTA citizens, but studied in EFTA or EU citizens. So this would be the third group. It's much easier from bureaucracy, basically, to translate or accept or recognize your diploma if you basically studied in an EU country, because there are a lot of agreements between from Switzerland and the EU and EFTA countries. The last group would be if you did not study in EU and EFTA country and you are not a citizen of an EU and EFTA country. So this would be the more difficult way to actually get into Switzerland, but I would not say it's impossible. So that's basically it. Maybe I'll add one more category. If you're not an EU and EFTA citizen, but you, I mentioned it, it's okay. Yeah. So, and you studied in those countries, the process is a little bit different, but I'll explain it now in the next step. Good. So we move into the recognition of your diploma. So that's the second point that I want to mention, and it is basically divided into 3. So there's direct recognition of your diploma, the indirect recognition of your diploma, and something weird, which I will mention in a while. It is recognition of an unrecognizable diploma. So these 3 things are these 3 ways to get your recognition of your diploma. The first 2, direct and indirect, are very straightforward processes. They are only given for citizens of Switzerland or EU or EFTA citizens, or if you're married to an EU citizens or Swiss citizens. So this is the way to get your diploma recognized. For the indirect one, the only difference is if you are a Swiss or EU citizen that has his diploma from outside of the EU or Switzerland. So this is where it adds one more layer of complexity, that you need also at least 3 to 5 years of clinical experience in order to get your diploma recognized. All of these specific requirements you can find in the Health Ministry website of Switzerland, which is www.bag.admin.ch. Now it makes us go to the next step, which is the next one on the list, the third one on the list, which is recognition of unrecognizable diploma. What is this exactly? So this is basically diploma for the recognition of your diploma if you're not an EU citizen or a Swiss citizen. So it does not really matter if you studied in Switzerland, in EU or EFTA country. If you do not have the citizenship of an EU or EFTA country or Swiss, or you're not married to one, then your diploma cannot be recognized. What does it mean? It means you can still work here, you can still do residency program, but the decision for employing you is switched to the cantons, so the canton that you apply to. And there are more friendly to foreigners cantons, and there are cantons that are less friendly to foreigners. In general, Aargau, Solothurn, Bern, they are more friendly for foreigners. I think there are several more cantons, and usually they do accept foreigners to work and by them. But what does it mean that your diploma is not recognized? It basically means you can still do your residence program, but you cannot do the specialty exam only after you finished 60 months or 5 years of working here in Switzerland. Only then you are eligible to do a state exam, which is a general state exam, which has stuff that you studied in medical school, and only then your diploma is going to be recognized. So before that exam, you cannot even do the specialty exam, which is if you're doing psychiatry, usually it's after 6 years that you can do it, which makes it a little bit more manageable, because in any case, when you want to do a specialty here, you will have to stay at least 5 years, because in case of psychiatry, it's 2 years stationary, 2 years ambulance outpatients. 1 year you have to do Fremdjahr, which is a year that you have to do something that has nothing to do with psychiatry, but general medicine or neurology or rehabilitation. You decide what you want to do. And 1 year you have to do Chefarztwechsel, which basically means you have to switch a hospital and do psychiatry, but with another head of hospital. So in total, what my point is that you anyway gonna spend this time here to do your specialty. So from time constraints is not a big deal, but it kind of sucks, I would say, that you will have to work at least 5 years in order to be able to be eligible to do an exam to get your diploma recognized. Now, there are some exceptions. This is not 100% official, but if you, for example, did the USMLE exam, there is a possibility that you will have an exemption from the state exam. But all of this, you will have to ask directly the MEBEKO, and you have to send their basically in emails. They usually respond after 3 to 4 days. Very responsive, very helpful. So don't hesitate if you have any specific questions to go there and ask. So that was the recognition, so the diploma recognition part. Now, specifically, as I said, very straightforward for the first two, the direct and then the indirect. But for the third one, the unrecognizable diploma recognition, there is a form. I can link it down below at the links, basically what it is about. And there is like a page 3, I think, the documents that you have to add to this, to get it recognized. And it's obvious things like, for example, the first one is a passport or identity card. Then you have to have your CV, so all your previous experience, where you studied, if you worked before. This is also important. If you have already clinical experience before, it's important to mention it and to write it here, because your salary also is determined by how many clinical experience years you had. So the more clinical experience that you had after graduation from medical school, that your salary is going to be a little bit higher, and every year is going to be also increased accordingly. Then we have the motivational letter. So basically here you have to write why did you decide to come to Switzerland for residency program. And you can be honest, you can just say whatever you feel like it, and it's not a big deal. You just write something short, and I think 1 page is the requirement. And then the diploma, you will have to add the original copy of your diploma. And if it's not in one of the 3 languages, actually 4 languages with English, if it's not in English, German, Italian or French, you'll have to have it translated and with like a professional translator service. And then comes the scope of practice. This is another document that you need to add. Usually the university that you graduated from is the one that should be issuing this document for you. In my case, it was like you have to actually go physically there and take those documents. Now it has been switched to online. It is 2 certificates that you have to get from the country where you got your diploma from. It is certificate of conformity and certificate of good standing. And these 2 documents are basically saying what is the scope of your practice, if you are allowed to practice in that country independently, if there's an official document that you don't have to worry too much about it. The university that you graduate for will have more information of how you get those 2 documents. And good standing is basically a police record that says that you have not been involved in any criminal activities at the country where you got your diploma from. And I think this one should be at least 3 months, not longer than 3 months also. You have to have an updated one when you send it for the MEBEKO. And then comes the last point, which is basically that the university where you graduated meets the minimal requirement that meets the standards of the EU and Switzerland. And this is also a document that your hospital will have to send. If you graduated from an EU country, it should not be a problem, and it will be given that you have this, because all the EU countries and the hospitals and universities have the same requirements, which is basically 6 years minimum, 5,500 hours of theoretical and practical teaching at a high university or something in this direction. And in case it is not in English, French, German, or Italian, you have to translate it. Okay. And that's it. So these are the files, these are the documents that you need in order to get your diploma recognized. Now we go to the next step, which is the language. So in Switzerland, you will have to have minimum B2 level at either German, French, Italian. So these 3 languages. And as I said before, I recommend German if you still now have to start a language, because you'll have more opportunities to get a job in a German-speaking canton, and the residency program is supposed to be better in those cantons. And B2 level, you have to do it in an institute where it is recognizable, for example, Goethe Institute or TELC, and you have to send basically this together with the other documents, MEBEKO documents. Now about prices. So you have to pay around 50 to 100 francs for checking your language proficiency, and around 800 to 1,200 francs for checking all the previous documents we discussed for recognition of your MEBEKO. Yes, so this is basically all the documents that you need in order to apply for recognition of your diploma. If you got it, so if you they will send you within 1 month, 2 weeks sometimes, a letter. If you have anything missing, you have to send it back. And generally, you will get like a letter that says, yes, now we have the GLN code, which is basically all doctors here in Switzerland that kind of practice are registered there. And there it's going to be, where did you get your diploma from and which language do you speak and at what level, and your country of origin, as well as a code, which is your specific identity number for that is registered you as a doctor in Switzerland. So now we move to how to apply. So this is a very important point. I will put a link down for this website, which is SWF not hashtag how do you call this? Strix or align register .ch. I'll put the link down. Basically, you can see it. And here you have a page either in French or German, and you can search any specialty that you want. For example, here in Fachgebiet, I put neurology, and it will show you all the neurology hospitals that have residency program. How do you apply? You basically have to enter each one of them. I would recommend as many as possible to send your CV and any other documents that they require directly to their HR, so the human resources, and they will hopefully send you back a message with a date for your interview. Some hospitals will not reply, some hospitals will reply and tell you that they're not searching for, and some will basically tell you, yes, come do the interview. If you see here on the other side, there's categories. So there's A category, there's C category, B, D. This is how big is the hospital. So A is the biggest. They offer 4-year programs, and usually they have all the required rotations that you need in order to become a specialist at what you're looking for, the specialty that you want. And that I would recommend applying for the big ones, but maybe you'll be able to find sometimes in the small ones, C category, easier spots, because it's in the countryside. Not many people wants to go there, and you can start there. And I think it's sometimes the atmosphere is sometimes better to get into the system in Switzerland. Of course, if you know somebody here in Switzerland that works in a hospital, but you're good friends with him and he knows you, he knows your history, he knows that he knows that you will be a good fit. Of course, he can directly talk to the secretary or the head of the hospital, and they could send you, like they will tell you, no, don't send it to the HR, send it directly to the head of the hospital, and he will check your CV and will maybe invite you for an interview, and according to that interview you will get or you will not get the job. You will not need it, it's not necessary, but if you know somebody that knows you, it's a bonus. Of course, as I said, not necessary. One more point that I want to emphasize, we talked about the language skills. It's maybe one of the biggest things in the interview is to be able to speak the language very well. So I would say really the language would sometimes be even more important than your CV or your what have you had in clinical practice before. And if you are comfortable with the language, especially if you're applying for the German-speaking countries, it's a very, very big plus. Now I go to the next step, also the specific tips for whoever is applying for more competitive specialties or specialties that don't have a lot of capacity, a lot of residents that can apply. I would say like this. I mean, usually there is lack of doctors in some specialties. There is not so much lack of doctors in other specialties. Many residency programs would see it as a very big positive if you had at least 1 year here in Switzerland as a doctor, just to know that you're in the system, just to know that you have done 1 year here, your language has improved. And some of the, I would recommend like this. If you apply for many residency programs, for example, in pediatrics, but you don't get any interviews, or you got an interview, but they tell you, look, your language is not that enough, maybe, it would be better maybe to apply for rehabilitation clinic, small practices, where you can go 1 year, which will also count as your fremdjahr. So you have anyway you will need in your specialty to do 1 year that has nothing to do with your specialty. And this can give you a very big positive when you apply next year or during the year that you're doing your rehabilitation for the specialty that you want. For example, pediatrics, or I don't know, neurology, or any other specialty that you're interested in. Another option is if your language skills are not that good and they're not, they still need to be improved and tweaked, then I would recommend you maybe to go as an Unterassistent. So Unterassistent is basically not a resident, it's below one level below resident. Usually students can even become Unterassistent if you're in an EU country. The thing I'm not so sure about if anybody can be Unterassistent or not. Because I think if you are not an EU citizen and not Swiss, of course, and you have graduated even in an EU country, but you don't have that citizenship, I don't think it would be possible to do an Unterassistent job. But this you will have to check by yourself. You go to the HR. So when you find a hospital that you want to apply for, there is offene Stelle, so open spots, and there would be written Unterassistenz, for example. You apply there, and basically you'll have more chances actually of getting a reply as an Unterassistent. Why? The salary is basically not so high. So it is around 1,500 landed in the bank, which is below the average in Switzerland. And Switzerland is an expensive country. So you will most probably have to live with somebody or like share an apartment or something like this in order to be able to manage around that time that you're an Unterassistent. But it's a very big positive because you will improve your language and you will have your foot in the system. And if you become good enough after 3 months, for example, it's called the Probezeit, checkup time to see if you're good enough, you can be also promoted to an Assistenzarzt. So in my case, I didn't do it, but I went directly to Assistenzarzt. But I know many of my friends who have started as Unterassistenten, and basically after 3-4 months, they have become Assistenzärzte, and they're still working there. So this is also a very good possibility. Of course, the salary is not that good, but once you become an Assistenzarzt, the salary is very good and you'll be able to live very comfortably, and you will not have any problems. Their salary is going to be above the average of like the average Swiss salary. One more thing that it's also very important for me to mention. Some people would consider, maybe I will go for psychiatry 1 year, even though I have no interest to become a psychiatrist. I would say if you are planning to go for a specialty that has something to do with psychiatry, for example, neurology, so it has something to do with psychiatry, and it actually, having 1 year of psychiatry can actually improve the treatment that you can give to your patients, then I would recommend that. But if you're planning to be a surgeon or dermatologist, or I'm not just giving an example that has nothing to do with psychiatry, it will not be perceived as positive when you're gonna apply for residency in that specialty the next year. This just common sense. Also, it's also not fair for you and for the patients in psychiatry if you're gonna go for a specialty that you have no interest in and you don't like, you're just there to pass the time and you don't feel like you have any connection with that specialty, and you do it just. I think the quality of service that you're gonna give during that specialty and the resources are not gonna be as good. And I think it's good to consider it if you have interest, or you're not sure if you have interest and you want to try it at least for 3 months. It's really good, I think, to do it in this way. Good. So I think that's about it of what I wanted to cover with you today. As I said before, it is mainly everything you can find in the official website, in the BAG official website. You can just Google the things we discussed. All this information comes from my own experience and the things I read there. It is updated according to what I know from reading it recently. I'm not so sure if in a few months or a year the information is going to be changed. But this is more or less of what I know about the topic. If you have more questions about this, I appreciate it if you just send it directly to the MEBEKO and not for me. This is not the scope of this channel. I did not do it to discuss too much of how to apply. I hope this video was enough and helpful for you. And if you are interested to see my development as a psychiatrist here and life in general here in Switzerland, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, like this video if you feel like you benefited a little bit from it. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you found this useful, and I wish you good luck in your process of applying here, and